You're listening to The Three Pillars of Success, a podcast that inspires people of all walks of life to gain perspective on what it means to succeed. My name is Geraldine Convento, and I'm best known for entrepreneurship, my skills in web presence, and SEO. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. Hey y'all, how you doing? This is me, Geraldine, the Entrepreneur Guide, web and SEO expert, here again for the Three Pillars of Success podcast. And I'm a super big fan of the person that I'm interviewing today. I'm going to let him introduce himself and we'll go ahead and get started. Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do for a living?
Geraldine, Verne Harnish, and I founded a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is worldwide. Today, we're on a company called Scaling Up, based out of Miami. I live in Boulder, Colorado. And we've got about 250 coaching partners on 6 continents, helping companies scale up with a tech platform and a learning platform. And then I wrote some books. And so that's me.
One book that was very impactful for me, it was called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. So thank you so much for writing that. It really made a difference in how I viewed my organization and began to just shift a lot of things in my operations.
I just did the audio recording for the 20th anniversary edition of that book. So hopefully my voice holds up here for our broadcast. But anyway, good to be on the show.
So what do you do for fun?
Piano, tennis, and I'm a card-carrying member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And I just found out I'm going to be keyboardist for a police cover band in the Netherlands in front of about 12,000 here coming up in May.
Yeah.
Really, they just sent me my part that I've got to get practiced up. And so looking forward to performing in about a month.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Now, we're here because we're talking all about success. I'd love to know, what does success mean for you?
Well, I know what creates success, Geraldine. And it really is just the sum total of what you do more of, less of, or different every day. That's it. And the sum total of the decisions that you make along the way, or you get others, or you influence others to make. So that's really the essence of success. And so the Rockefeller Habits and the rest of our work are what are those things you do more of, less of, or different every day that's going to drive the success of your business and your personal life as well.
Great. And if you were to choose 3 pillars that were attributed to success in your life, what would they be?
Well, I think first, learning. We talk about leaders or readers. Second, the importance of goal setting priorities. Just read through that whole part of my book on the audiobook this morning. And then third, it is this set of rituals, these routines that make or break you on an hour by hour, day by day basis. So it's learning, goal setting or priorities, and then the rituals.
And was there a particular roadblock that you had as you're walking on your path to success? And you share that with us and how you overcame it.
It's always been cash. I mean, if we were just going to be real straight with it, my dad had a very successful company when I was a kid here in Denver, Littleton, Colorado, where you're looking at moving. And he was owed about $500,000 by a well-known entrepreneur here in Colorado whose funds had got locked up by our government. He ended up not doing anything wrong, but that $500,000 cash flow that my dad was not able to collect was enough back in the late 60s to end his business. And he never really recovered from it. So let's speed forward. I'd launched Gazelles, now Scaling Up. We're doing $500,000, million, 2 million, 4 million, getting ready to do 8 million. And boom, 9/11 hit. And we lost about $1 million in 10 weeks. And I had been dutifully losing money, which is what you were supposed to do as a startup in the late 90s. And Geraldine, I was upside down so quick. I thought I was going to lose our home. I'm like father, like son. Revenue's vanity, profit sanity, but cash is king. And I got serious about saying, all right, this is the business we're in, is to help entrepreneurs never go through what my dad went through. And here I'm now going through it. And so it really was a wake-up call that you can get by with decent people, decent strategy, decent execution, but not a day without cash. So just don't run out. That's all.
Absolutely. I think there are in the business world, there's so many things that are overlooked, proper budgeting, and not
Yeah.
just budgeting as saving money, but more so thinking about how about for business expansion? How about for your head
Yeah.
office expenses? Well, all these different categories of saving that we must separate. So that way things don't get really confusing the moment that you lose a whole bunch of funds unexpectedly. And one of the things that I like to coach for people earlier in their journey is that you have to price to scale. You can't think about just the expenses that you have in front of you right now because anything can happen at any moment. You may have to pivot. Just reading your books, there's so many different factors that can play into this that you really have to consider.
And it's making sure that, and that was the part of research that Jim Collins finally got around to. He'd really dealt with people, strategy, and execution, but it wasn't till Great by Choice, when he really studied us, kind of startups to scale ups, that he said those companies that chose greatness had access to 3 to 10 times the cash their competitors did, so that they could get a better return on luck. Jim was the only guy who studied luck
Wow.
in a business perspective. And he thought the great companies just had better luck, and they didn't. They had slightly more bad luck. So the difference was what you did with that luck. When you've had bad luck, you need cash to survive. And when you have good luck, you need cash to take advantage of those opportunities. I think we've gotten too drunken on wanting to get cash from others instead of John Mullen's book, The Customer Funded Business, where let's from day one run a solid business that's got the customer funding it. And as a result, you can also hold on to more of the company, and you sleep better at night and you age slower. And that's the key, is getting a good night's sleep. Being short of cash is not good.
Yeah, or you can buy your youth back. There's been so
Yeah.
many occasions of
Yeah.
people, or even celebrities, where back in the day they looked a lot older than they do today because they're in a better financial position. They're taking care of their health and well-being, and they're
Yeah.
happy.
Well, and I think it's also critical wherever you are to live below your means. We see it with all the professional athletes who have the big money hit for a couple, 3 years, and they end up broke because they lived way beyond their means. And I'm trying to remember, it's been all over kind of the news and TikTok and all that, but the football star who literally lived at the stadium, I think it was up in Cleveland, who lived at the stadium for 2 years to save money, said, look, I don't need a fancy car. I don't need a fancy home. I have everything I need here, a shower, a place to sleep, workout facility. I am just going to dedicate, living as cheaply as possible and focus on my career, which I think is what every entrepreneur has to do. Live as cheap as you can, put everything into the business, and don't run out of cash.
Yeah. Delay that gratification.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, great. Well, you've given us a lot of nuggets today, and I'm just wondering, is there any parting advice that you'd like to give to anyone who's looking to achieve success in their life?
I really think it goes back to what Ivy Lee taught John D. Rockefeller, Charles Schwab, and all of the titans 100 years ago. And if your listeners haven't heard the classic story, Charles Schwab's trying to build up Bethlehem Steel, and he's frustrated. He just can't get people to get stuff done, including himself. He knew what to do. They just couldn't do it. So Ivy Lee, who really was kind of the first management consultant, said, all right, I'm not going to charge you. I'm going to give you 20 minutes piece of advice. Pay me what you think it's worth. And it was very simply, before you go to bed at night, make a list of the 6 things you must get accomplished the next day. What are your 6 priorities? And then here's the key. Here's 2 things that people miss. One, you have to put them in order. You need to number them 1 through 6, because what'll happen is you'll make the list and you'll get all the easy ones done and you'll skip the hard ones. The stuff you usually really have to do to move yourself and your organization forward is hard. And this is when you clean your desk. This is when you do everything else but it. And then the second thing I've learned is you sleep on that list, because when I wake up the next morning, my brain's had a chance to kind of work it through the night, and I'll reevaluate. Did I really pick the right one? And is number one the most important? Anyway, he did that. He then taught it to all of his people. And 30 days later, he wrote a check for $25,000 to Ivy Lee, which was a king's ransom back then. I think I looked it up as equivalent of like $500,000 for 20 minutes of advice. But he said it was the single most important advice he'd ever received as he then went and scaled Bethlehem Steel and became one of the titans. And so you hate to be that simple, but making that list, picking your priority today, your sprint for the week, your theme for the quarter, your critical number for the year, and sticking to it is super powerful.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on this show, and I know all the listeners do too.
All right.
So for those of you who are listening, if you haven't checked out the Scaling Up book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, check out Verne on Amazon, also his websites, and definitely check those out. I'm telling you, it's made such a big difference for me in the past, over 10 years of business. That all being said, thanks for tuning in today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to us on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, all the places. And please do share with your friends, because that's how more people find out and gain success in their life. Thanks for listening. Bye, everyone.